Go on 2 minutes afterwards.
What's 2 + 3?
So Anne, you say the first words and I'll join it.
Hi, Nick. This new technology. Ah.
Hello.
Hello. How lovely to see you.
And you. God, we've known each other and worked together for more than 40 years, and now we're still doing it, one shape or another.
I know, this is incredible. I mean, this is the upside of it, isn't it? Everybody talking to each other through the screen.
At a time like this.
I cannot believe what we're finding, this amazing world we're finding ourselves in.
Well, we're the lucky ones, aren't we? And all the people who are in good health at the moment. I feel so sad and heartbroken for the people whose stories we hear day after day on television, don't you? I mean, it's absolutely terrifying and very, very sad. One good thing to say is that our Prime Minister seems to be on the mend, doesn't it?
Wasn't it scary though? And it was an awful lot more scary than we were led to believe, clearly.
Yeah.
And I thought even in his broadcast yesterday, he didn't look he looked as though he'd really been through it, didn't he? And he still sounded as though, every breath was an effort, and it just brings home how scary this whole thing is.
Yeah, and it sort of picks on anyone, doesn't it? And talking about the coronavirus, weren't you sad to hear about Tim Brooke Taylor? What a nice man he was.
Yes, he was. He was a goodie. They were wonderful, the goodies. They were fantastic, groundbreaking, and very talented, of course, all of them. And I spent quite a while with Bill Oddie just before Christmas.
Oh, on the narrowboat. Yeah,
we were making this canal boat program for Channel 5, and it was really good fun. And he and Pete Waterman were on one boat, and me and Jenny Bond were on another. And so I got to know Bill better than I've ever got to know him before. And he will be. I can only imagine how scared. How deeply upset he will be to lose somebody that he worked with so closely for so long.
Yeah, a very, very talented man. Going back to the days of Monty Python, I know he wasn't in Monty Python, but he was very closely connected with all that group, and they're a very, very funny bunch who sort of emerged in the late 60s and into the 70s. Absolutely brilliant. So sad. And someone else I'm very sad about is Sterling Moss. He was such an iconic figure in the 1950s when I was growing up, and to actually meet him, as I did a few times, in TVAM days, was really special.
I remember him. He was the racing driver's racing driver, wasn't he?
Yeah, if you put it like that, people would say, "Who do you think you are?" Sterling Moss, the police would say. But actually, one day Sterling Moss was speeding, and a policeman stopped him and said, "Who do you think you are?" Sterling Moss. He said, "Well, actually, yeah." Oh dear, so sad to see him go. I mean, great innings and all that, but terribly sad to see him go.
Yes, unfortunately, the losses like that. I mean, every loss is a loss. It's like the newsreaders have to keep saying, "We know we're just giving you statistics, and behind every statistic is a life." And
a family.
I know, and a family. So
brothers and sisters.
There are no words to describe, are there? What are you doing? Are you in splendid self-isolation?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, I was sent home by the BBC about 4 weeks ago now, I think, because of my age, 62 and all that.
Yeah. Well, me too. My family is old and vulnerable, so I'm just doing what I'm told.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, we're making the best of it, Vicky and I, going out for long walks in the sunshine and gardening and stuff like that. And I am contributing quite a bit to BBC Midlands Today, which is where I work on a regular basis and have done for 22 years now, unbelievably. So it's great to still be involved, but also very frustrating at a time of national crisis not to be part of the machinery delivering the news, you know. But just talking about the news, one other thing I have to mention, because I know it will strike a chord with you, it certainly did with me. There was a guy who was working in the recording studios with the Beatles when they recorded Hey Jude, an engineer or something. And at the end of it, Paul McCartney gave him the words he'd written out for Hey Jude on a piece of paper, just handed to him. Can you imagine? And those words have just been sold, I think I read, for £750,000. Can you believe it?
Oh, isn't that amazing? What a legacy, isn't it?
I know, and from my point of view, really frustrating, because I'll never forget the day that Frank Sinatra gave me the written words of My Way, and I thought it was just a bit of clutter, and you know, I just shredded them.
Yeah, of course.
Very disappointing.
Oh, I tell you what, before thinking of Boris doing his message yesterday, I thought the Queen again did her Easter message yesterday and again got it dead right. And the message she gave a week ago when she was talking about we will get through this and we will meet again.
Meet again. That was absolutely, wasn't it?
Wasn't it? And I think the power of what she said was even more so because she was so stoic. She was there was no emotion in her face or even her voice.
Classic. Mm.
Yes, but she delivered it with such a punch, and this time she said something about how in every culture in the world, the candle, the lighting of a candle is symbolic of a light overcoming darkness. And she didn't go too religious as well. So which
a sort of new beginning.
Yeah, so it was Easter Sunday. She was taught to a lot of people that will mean, you know, the resurrection. But to people who don't think religiously, that will just mean getting through the dark times.
Mm.
And I thought she's just amazing.
Nailed it, as they say. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I know. And talking about Vera Lynn, we had some lovely times with her, didn't we, in the early days of TBA?
Oh, yes. Well, we used to get her into our programs every time there was an anniversary of something.
Yeah, to do. I know. And I can really appreciate, I mean, it really hits me, because I know it does you. In the wartime, and my father, he said, hearing her voice over the airwaves when he was thousands of miles from home over a crackling radio, you know, meant so much, particularly the words of "we'll meet again." You know, it meant so much. So to get to know her a bit as we did was wonderful. And of course, you worked with her daughter, didn't you?
I was asked to present the nationwide Rock and Pop Awards, which later evolved into the Brits. But in my day, it was to do with nationwide program, and they launched these things called the Rock and Pop Awards. And I was asked to do it the first year with David Jensen, you know, Kid Jensen, and the BBC wardrobe department. It was very show busy, and I really did feel very much out of my depth because I was a journo, not a show busy type person. And the BBC wardrobe department made me the most fantastic dress, but it was very short and very frilly and very slashed up to the hip on one side, and you know, it wasn't me at all, really. And the assistant, one of the producers, took me aside, a lovely girl called Virginia, and she said, you're not entirely happy in that outfit, are you? And I said, no, I just don't feel it isn't me. And she said, I think, let me just pop home. I think I could find you something a bit more sophisticated, a bit more you. And she brought in a beautiful silk trouser suit, and I wore that. And I got to know Virginia very well and got to trust her very much. And she was a lovely, lovely, very talented producer. And it was only months later, clearly when she felt she could, she let me know that her mother was Vera Lynn. Isn't that incredible?
Fantastic. While we're talking loosely about the royal family, we've got some lovely memories of Princess Diana, haven't we? She used to love watching us on breakfast television, didn't she? She sent messages all the time. So do you remember that?
Yeah, because we shared a hairdresser, which was really strange. Oh, look, there's a lovely picture of you meeting me.
Yeah, I met her so many times. And I remember one stage she said, are you following me around? Am I following you at the moment?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, we tended to meet up at a lot of like awards ceremonies, didn't we? And things like that. But yeah, no, that's right. Her hairdresser was also my hairdresser, Richard.
Yeah, not mine. Yeah.
No, nothing to do with yours. And but what was lovely is that when Richard did my hair, I used to go to his house in Kensington, and I used to stick my head in his sink. And that's how he did my hair. But with Diana, he went to Kensington Palace every morning, and they had a sort of makeup room, and he would switch the television on, and while he was doing her hair, they would watch us. So it became really easy to be able to get messages to and from, which was nice. And so that's why whenever we met her, she always had watched, and she always knew, and she used to comment on your jumpers, didn't she?
Yeah, and she also asked me how my back was. She was right up to speed with that. Do you remember I had a nightmare with my back?
Yeah.
Kept doing discs and things like that. Yeah, and we were always trying to get her to come on our program. And she said, yeah, well, you know, I'm not sure and all that. We're saying we've got 15 million a week watching, you know, and in the end she didn't. But I have very fond memories.
Oh, well, she used to say to me, because we were both had a bad time from the press in those days. Oh, do you remember me coming in at 3 a.m. With croissants and a coffee, and you would sometimes say to me, "Don't look at the newspapers. You're not going to like it."
Yeah.
All upset. But Diana used to say, the one thing I really do envy you, Anne, is that you can sit there on your sofa in the morning and you can hold up a newspaper that's saying something nasty about you, and you can say, please don't believe this isn't true. And I can't do that. To which I will always, well, you can anytime you want, you can come on and deny anything. And of course she never did, no.
I think we actually worked with her at one royal premiere, didn't we? A Bond premiere together?
I think so. I think I can't remember, because you did a lot of premieres, didn't you?
Loads, yeah.
I think I only joined you.
I did 2 together, I think.
Sorry?
I think you and I did 2 together. One was that Labyrinth film with David Bowie and Jim Henson involved and people like that. And the other one was a Timothy Dalton Bond film.
Yes, it was nice to dress up in our finery. There we are in our finery.
Yeah.
I think that was at the Bond. I think that was at the Bond premiere, where clearly I felt confident enough to show off a bit of cleavage.
Saucy in your old age, aren't you?
Yes, sorry.
I do remember one Bond premiere when I'd done pieces to camera for the later broadcast, you know, and then hid away in the shadows as the royal party was being shown through. And Princess Diana was going along meeting people, and she bumped into Linda Bellingham, who was in the queue, dear old Linda Bellingham. Princess Diana, I could hear her say to Linda Bellingham, "Where's Nick?" And she pointed over there, you know, and Princess Diana went, "Hi, Nick, how are you doing?" or something like that. It was unbelievable, really. I seem to remember Princess just thinking, what's going on here?
What's this new?
She was so down to earth, wasn't she? And, you know, sort of really.
Yes.
She was great to me. Just talking about Bond films, what about that day we spent with Pierce Brosnan in Malibu, was it?
Yes, it was. We'd asked to go and interview him because at the time, everybody thought that he was going to be the next Bond.
Yeah, he was Remington Steele, wasn't he then?
Yeah, and apparently he had trouble with the Remington Steele contract. They wouldn't release him from the contract or something.
Yeah.
And so we weren't sure, but we asked to go if we could go and oh, look, there we are. We asked to go and interview him.
Oh my goodness.
And he said, come and visit us in Malibu and spend the day with us. And look, that's him and his first wife, Cassandra Harris, who of course was a Bond girl.
Yes, lovely day. We had a lovely day, didn't we? Walking on.
Marvelous day. We walked along the beach, and then I remember it being so natural and normal, and thinking, "Oh, this is how the big stars live." Because after we'd walked along the beach for quite a long time, taken that shot, we then went back to their beach house and hosed the sand off our feet, and then walked in, and inside they got champagne and strawberries, and we sat on their veranda, literally overlooking the beach. Oh, it was beautiful, wasn't it?
Have you got a confession to make about that photograph?
Yeah. Well, that photograph, I've got lots of copies of that photograph, and they're for a while I cut you off it.
Story of my life.
No, I'm sorry, but I always thought you could do the same. You could cut me off that edge, and it would look as though you just spent the day with them. But it was funny, yes. You were, yeah, but you're not cut off. But I've got another.
It wasn't that a brilliant few days we had in Los Angeles when I think Disneyland was celebrating 30 years or so, when we went round all the homes in Beverly Hills, and we had to keep asking me to move cars because we're in a blooming great bus with all the camera crew and the producers and stuff.
All of the roads around there are very windy, like in the Italian Alps or something, aren't they? And you turn the corner and suddenly find that there was nowhere for your bus to go. And we had all the camera crews and all the equipment and everything. Where did we end up? I remember going to, oh, look, there we are doing the live broadcast.
Yeah, that's right. Jackie Collins and Patrick Duffy. You and Patrick Duffy,
Oh,
still talking about it now.
yes, we shared a moment or two.
Yeah, he's
on that particular OB, and then he later came to Britain, and we shared a moment or two again. He was gorgeous. Well, he still is, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So the reason it's night there, of course, is because we were doing, to be live at breakfast time in Britain, we had to do it at about 11 o'clock at night.
Yes, it was. We enjoyed the drink afterwards, didn't we?
Yes, I saw there was lots of it as well.
And there's also Michael Praed who was with us, wasn't there, at the time? And he really partied with us.
He was beautiful. Yeah, he was lovely. They were very natural, and well, I don't know, it was very casual. It was really lovely.
It was fantastic for me meeting Jane Fonda, who I'd sort of idolised and lusted after as a teenager, and had pictures all over my wall. When I actually got to interview her at one of the Hollywood studios, wow, that was spectacularly exciting. I've still got that picture of Jane and me in the loo here right now. Yeah.
I can't remember the interview. Was she sort of very forthcoming? Was she natural and generous? Or
oh yeah, absolutely. No, she was terrific. It was really, really good. And the other thing I remember was you and me going to see Bob Hope at his house.
I do remember that very well, because now his house was again on the Hollywood Hills, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Golf course in the back garden.
Yes, he had his own golf course next to the swimming pool, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they were again very generous and kind. And his wife Dolores went out, made us a cup of tea and brought out a tray of tea, I remember. And the only thing there was a slight cloud on that one, because I was being stupid and precocious, and I think Bing Crosby, his great partner, had died only about a year or 2 years before. And I thought, I'll be clever and ask Bob Hope the obituary question. So there's always a clip of him saying something cool for a future obituary. I mean, I don't know how I had the nerve, but I remember saying to him in the middle of an interview, which was going really well with us all, I said, how would you like to be remembered? And he froze on me. I mean, that was a question he didn't even want to contemplate, and clearly thought it was blinking rude of me to even go there. And if you hadn't been there, that would have been it.
And didn't you go and see the Golden Girls?
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the other thing that I thought was amazing. I remember going to the Walt Disney Studios, and I interviewed Richard Dreyfuss. And then I did the Golden Girls, and I don't know if you remember the Golden Girls. They were huge at the time. And they had, and it was like the old-fashioned Hollywood movie lot, where you'd have a row of bungalows, and every star and it would have the star name on the front door. Every star would have their own little bungalow, and yeah, they were wonderful as well, because they sparked each other off. They clearly got on extremely well. They were fun to interview, and I saw a recording of it as well. Yeah, that was brilliant. We were so lucky.
Yeah, we were. I also remember, actually, it's only very random that we sat in the cockpit with the pilot landing in Los Angeles. Remember that as well?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, yes. It's a long time ago now. But actually, while we're talking about Hollywood and stuff, makes me think of Joan Collins, not Jackie, who'd just seen. Do you remember when we started Good Morning with Anne and Nick? It was obviously a decade later after TBAM. And the first programme in October 1992, she was our first guest, absolutely first guest. And we wanted to say hello to her before we went on air. And actually, we were sort of apprehensive, pretty keyed up, starting a whole new programme. We wanted to go and meet her and say hello. I think you had met her before, but I certainly hadn't. Wanted to break the ice, etc., etc. But she wouldn't see anyone. And it wasn't until the actual opening title music was playing, so we were sitting there thinking, empty chair, is she going to turn up? That she actually walked onto set.
Gosh, it's nightmare. The funny thing is, I do not remember that, and I guess it's probably.
I do.
Yeah, you just get. I was busy thinking of so many other things, but I think with big stars like that, sometimes you meet them on a bad day, and then of course you make up your mind about them from that moment onwards. But actually, maybe it isn't always their true colour, because when I met her previously, when I did her on TVAM, she was absolutely generous and marvelous and fantastic. So
yeah, and to be fair, I've met her a few times since, and she's always been great.
You never know when you. I remember. Do you remember when Arnold Schwarzenegger came in?
Do I remember?
Oh. Yeah, because I can't remember exactly why. You must have said something to him that turned him so bad-tempered and obnoxious and rude, actually. Can you remember what it is you said? Or
Well, no, I can't specifically, but I think first and foremost, he felt that I was sort of slightly disrespectful, and I just saw him as a bodybuilder who did a bit of acting. I think that didn't upset and it
I
impress
just
him.
said, yeah.
But also, I think genuinely he was in awe of my physique and slightly resentful of
Yes,
my
he does, yeah.
six-pack. I don't think that helped.
No,
But he
absolutely.
actually did threaten to walk out during commercial break, didn't he, to you when I'd gone to the loo?
It was you he had something about, absolutely. And
Bit
yes,
jealous.
he
Go
threatened
on.
to walk out, and he was horrible. And I remember you and I afterwards sort of sitting back. Sometimes you'd sit back and think, oh crumbs, that was hard work, that was terrible. And I remember us saying, right, he's top of the blacklist, he ain't coming home.
Never again. Yeah.
Never again, we'll never do him again. And then about a year later, I do remember being told that Arnold Schwarzenegger was our guest the next day. And you and I both looked at each other in dread and thought, no, absolutely no. We would very rarely say no to anyone, but we do not want, please. And they said, hard luck, he's coming.
You've got him.
Yes. And he came on the second time. I don't know if you remember, but he was wonderful. He told anecdotes, he was generous, he was funny, he was lovely, so much that afterwards I felt confident enough to say to him, we don't understand it because you were so horrible and obnoxious last time, and we thought you were so rude, and you clearly didn't enjoy your time with us. Why did you come back? And then why so different this time? And he did say something like, I'm so sorry, you go through periods of maybe believing your own publicity too much, and I think I was going through a very rough time like that, and I'm very, very sorry. Please accept my apology that I took it out on you guys.
It's astonishing. Do you remember a day that really struck a chord with me? John Denver.
Oh yeah.
And he came in and described to us so graphically how he wrote down his song. It was absolutely brilliantly, how he talked about, I was skiing one day in the mountains in Colorado, and I was going higher and higher up the mountain above the tree line where the sky was so vivid blue. And it was such an evocative picture. And he said, and the trees were so green, and then there's the snow below, and I looked down and I could see the skiers and hear the swish, swish, swishing. And he said it sort of filled up my senses like a night in the forest, like the mountains in springtime, and it just got to him. So he sprinted downhill, went home and wrote the whole song in 40 minutes. Wow. And he described this so graphically in about 2 minutes. And we said at the time, that was the most sort of inspiring 2 minutes we've had to date here on TVAM, because it was, I can still see it now. So sad he died so young, didn't he, in 1970?
Yeah. And he was such a lovely guy, and that is such an enduring song. It's beautiful. But I remember him telling that story, and I have looked for that clip ever since. I would love to find it.
Yeah, I would love to see that. Who particularly do you remember as an interview that you've ever done?
Oh, it has to be. I mean, there have been so many, as you know, of all sorts as well, but it has to be Betty Davis. It just has to be. I think we were very lucky when we did TVAM in the 80s.
You've frozen. Keep talking. I can't hear you at the moment. I don't know whether anyone else can hear me. You've come back again.
I can hear you great.
Oh,
I don't know if anyone can not hear me, but I'll go on rabbiting. She was, I've had a little thing saying my internet connection is unstable. That's because I live in a village, and sometimes the internet wobbles a bit. You can obviously hear me again now, can you?
Yeah, I've got you, fine.
Good technology. No, it's Betty Davis was golden era Hollywood. And I couldn't help but be stunned to meet her. And my mum always used to say, there's no such thing as a bad Betty Davis movie. If Betty Davis is in it, it's going to be a good movie. But when she came in to see me at TVM after you'd left, she just had a stroke and was recovering from a stroke. And a lot of people watching said afterwards, was she drunk? And no, she wasn't. She'd had a stroke. But she still was able to tell the most wonderful stories. And when I asked her about Joan Crawford, she sort of sat back and took her time to tell the story, and she reached for a cigarette. And I remember the director yelling in my ear, is she allowed to do this? Can we allow this on television in Britain? Nobody else ever smokes, but she went ahead and she lit this cigarette in the most long, lugubrious manner. And before she answered me, she took a great big drag on it and blew a great puff of smoke out and told me a couple of anecdotes about Joan Crawford. So that hand has shook Betty Davis's hand, and I'm very proud of that.
Yeah, that is spectacular.
What about you, though? I mean, John, you mentioned John Denver, and that was wonderful.
John Denver, yeah, very special. Also, Eric Morecambe, my absolute hero. Got a statue of him on the mantelpiece in this house. And he was a big Luton Town fan, of course, as you know, and just the funniest man, voted the funniest man of the 20th century. There's so many stories about him that I could tell. But just meeting him when he came in at TVAM, I was presenting with John Stapleton that day.
I was at home.
Yeah.
I was at home in bed watching, because I used to have Wednesdays off, didn't I, in the end? I was watching you in bed, and I saw that Eric Morecambe was coming. No, I've always wanted to meet Eric Morecambe. And I remember thinking, oh, well, never mind. He'll come in again in a few weeks' time, probably. And of course,
well, within about a month, he'd gone. It's just unbelievable. And things I remember, Luton had played West Ham away the night before, and I'd been to the game and got a programme and brought it in, so I realised he wasn't there. And so I handed it to him and said, I've got this especially for you. He said, oh, thanks, I'll treasure that. I threw it over his shoulder. But he was just, at one stage, we said to him, it's great having you here. Can you stay a little bit longer? He said, stay? I could marry you. And I said, how many children have you got? 3, I think, but I left home early this morning, so I'm not so sure. He's just constantly coming out with one-liners, as well as talking about his health, because he had fairly pioneering transplant surgery, or bypass surgery, not transplant, bypass surgery in the late 70s. And he said, look at me, you know, I feel great 6 years on. I couldn't be healthier. So it's just so poignant, so ironic.
But I remember he used to never asked about his heart attack, he would say, no, you know, I'm doing all right. Keep going.
Yeah, I know. So there are loads of other people we could talk about. We're sort of running out of time, actually. Do you realise we've been talking for about 26 minutes?
Well, we're always able to talk. I tell you what, somebody who'd watched our little trailer over the last couple of days said, do we still have any props from those days? And look,
not many, but
I've found,
I've got this egg cup.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
very prized possessions, weren't they?
Oh, they were, because I've got 2 styles of TVAM mug. 2 different sorts.
I haven't got any of that. But I've also got a letter. Can I just show you this? Yeah. This letter here was from Peter J. and David Frost the night before we went on air for the first time, saying good luck, you know.
Oh,
that's quite some treasure.
Came along. Well, look at this then. That.
Wow. Oh, that's Good Morning, Anne and Nick in the 90s, isn't it? Yeah.
That is, we used to send a leaflet out to our coffee club members. We had coffee clubs all over the Britain.
Oh, fantastic.
Do you remember? And we used to send these little newsletters out every week, just reminding people what we'd done that week or something. Because it was before the days when programmes had websites.
Websites then. Absolutely brilliant. We're running out of time, Annie, so we're going to have...
I've got one more to show you.
Oh, gosh.
A script.
You never did talk to time. It's your problem.
Right. It's a script. And it's a Good Morning with Anne and Nick script. And it's, good morning, it's Friday, the 28th of May, and it's lovely to be back. I think I just...
What a great start.
And you say, and just in time, I might add, since this is our last programme until after the summer holidays.
Wow. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I haven't got anything like that. But look, as I say, we are sort of running out of time, but there are so many things we could talk about. We've got to do it again. Do you fancy doing it again?
Yeah, I've got lots more to talk about. Definitely.
Loads and loads of people that we've been lucky enough to meet and interview, and all the experiences we've gone through. So should we leave it there for now? Yes,
and let's keep safe and well. Stay in.
And everyone.
What I'm trying to do, it's so frustrating not being able to just go and do your thing, but if this is the most useful thing that people like you and me can do at the moment, stay in, stay safe, then that's what we've got to do, isn't it?
Yeah, lovely to talk to you, girl. You're looking well.
Love to you and yours, darling.
Thank you, and yours. Bye-bye.